Hello everybody, welcome to Radio Mythoverse for December the 17th, 2019. It's cold and stormy out, but we're all buttoned up and snug with the Christmas tree decorated and some scented candles and hot chocolate and cookies for the kids. We got some relaxing Christmas music going on because once again I'm just in that kind of mood. December does that to me for some reason, which may have to do with specific fond childhood memories that invariably took place this time of year. So, hey folks, I'm Dan, editor-in-chief of the Mythoverse. We got a fun show for you planned out tonight. With me tonight is Brett, our head of community outreach, and Matt, our lead writer. What's up, guys?
I'm having a hard time associating the words cold and Florida together.
Well, I'm just south of Georgia.
I've been to Disney World, I think the Florida one is called, during winter, and it is like ball-numbing cold during that time.
Yeah, I mean, we went down to just above freezing a couple weeks ago, so it does get cold up here in Jacksonville, Florida. So
then again, I mean, from perspective, back when I lived in Florida, I was living in Boca. That's like I think like an hour or so like outside of Miami.
Sure. I mean, it does happen. It's just when you go down to South Florida, there's a very, very small window of cold, maybe 2 to 3 weeks if you're lucky. I think last year I only got a couple weeks of it. But where I am right now, we get like 3 months of cold, so it's much more up my alley. So, how you guys doing? Matt and Brett, what's up?
Just got some winter cold. That's.
I mean, it's Washington. It's cold. It's wet, and it's gray, and I love it.
Man, but
it's Texas. It shouldn't be this cold.
That's all the time, though. All right, so I mentioned I have a lot of fond memories, which have a tendency to take place during this month. Matt or Brett, can you say the same? Do you have any fond Christmas time memories you want to share?
More or less. Well, before we go, we got someone in the chat is asking when I can hear the 1-year-old in the background. Someone in the chat's asking if Changeling's going to be available for purchase because apparently they missed the Kickstarter. I mean, the digitals for all $3 are all set and ready to go. I'm wondering why they aren't out for purchase right now.
Well, they can be. It's just we have not set them up for purchase. Wicked Publishing.
Whoever's commenting, I could probably just send them my copy. I don't know.
It's Miss Reno 1000. I'm not sure if they use that for everything they do online, but that's their YouTube name.
Okay, well, the plan is we would like to offer it for sale digitally. We have the means to do so on our store, and we could also submit it to Comixology. So I could offer it for sale on our store and submit it up to Comixology. There is a stipulation in our contract that Wicked does get a percentage of the digital sales. So we just got to work on that. Hold on 1 second. The 1-year-old's over here. What's up? Oh, you're giving me headphones? He came all the way across the house to give me headphones. Well, that's so cool of you. Thank you very much. He loves to deliver things. Hey. Say hi. This is my 8-year-old.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hello.
Yeah, she's the daughter. Hey, tell Brett whether or not you like your changeling hoodie.
I really love it. I think it's a really awesome thing. I think a lot of people will buy it. It's awesome. And I might even read your comic too.
For one, I know a really cool lady who practically lives in a hoodie like that.
Yeah, well, she loves it. It's she got the first one ever made. She got the child prototype. That was the proof of concept for it. So hers is pretty well worn. She doesn't wear it all the time, but when she does wear it, she wears it all day.
You'd be pretty proud, Brett.
That's one way of putting it. Yeah.
Well, good. You should be, man. All right, so I had neglected to swap over to the chat window. So we've been on the waiting to load screen this entire time. I was distracted. I apologize. So anyway, let's see. So I was talking about winter memories. Would you say, can you think of one that's like especially vivid or one that stuck with you all this time?
Off the top of my head, no. Yes.
How about you, Matt?
It's
Probably
That's on my
Christmas
head.
in second grade because that was the only time it snowed on Christmas Day.
Nice. I can get it from your site if you make it available. I love the urban fantasies genre. Yeah.
well, you love all three then, probably.
Yeah, they're all essentially urban fantasy, because they are modern fantasy that takes place primarily in cities. Adobe Kroger is more like action noir. Changeling is more slice of life, young adult, and Mythics is more of a detective story. But yeah, they're all essentially urban fantasy, so really cool. Awesome. So for me, I think one of the main reasons I insist upon live Christmas trees, however much of an extra hassle they are to clean up, and you can only use them once, I associate most of my positive childhood memories with live Christmas trees. When I was growing up, I would spend Christmases at my grandmother's farm in Pennsylvania, and she had like 140 acres of farmland. And in Pennsylvania, it would snow like 4 to 5 feet around Christmas time, so I'd get to go out in a snowsuit and dig snow tunnels and toboggan down the hills at top speed onto a dirt road with a 3-foot drop, so you caught some air at the end there. And I got my first bike for Christmas. It was this fantastic motorcycle replica with blue tires, and I was the only kid that had blue tires, so that was pretty awesome. Yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons I look forward to Christmas every year.
I can't remember one specific Christmas off the top of my head, but I do remember like a bunch of little moments. Like when I was a kid, like we had like all the Christmas stuff was like just put away for like a whole year, and that was including like a bunch of Christmas movies and tapes.
Mm-hmm.
I think one, which my brother and I just watched like all the time around Christmas.
Yeah. So I think we were interrupted by the 1-year-old when Matt was telling his story. So Matt, why don't you repeat that for me?
Yeah, about how in second grade, that was the only time it snowed on Christmas Day. I mean, it was coming from Michigan. It's very rare for the weather to be exactly how you want it to be, and so every year, Christmas has never been a snowy day that's described in holiday specials and all that.
Oh yeah, that's
On your
disappointing.
side, on the east side, maybe I was on the west side. It snowed every year because of the lake effect, snow from Lake Michigan.
Well, I see that Alabaster and Duskquill and Dylan are in the chat, on the panel, I should say. Do you guys have any fond memories of this time of year?
Let's see. I remember when my parents saved up enough money to get me a PS3. That was like the most like mind-blowing thing like ever.
Yeah, don't tell my daughter, but she's getting a Switch.
I mean, hey, that is a good console. I enjoy my Switch.
Yeah, like the first game I ever played on that PS3 was it was a Tony Hawk game.
Oh, I love the Tony Hawk games.
Was it a Pro Skater or one of the Undergrounds? I don't think they got any of the Undergrounds on PS3 though.
Dude, I have like all of them.
It reminds me, like when I was 10 years old.
It was
That was
It was Tony Hawk's Proving Grounds. It was one of the.
Proving Grounds. Okay.
I mean, it wasn't like. I mean, it was a good game. It was fun to play, but I mean, compared to like the Pro Skater and the Underground games. But I mean, I didn't care at the time. I was like, oh my god, these graphics.
You know, I remember like when I was around 10 years old, that Christmas, that was when my brother and I got our first console, which was an original Xbox, and the game I got on that was Star Wars Starfighter Special Edition, and it was like the first time I ever, I mean, it was literally the first video game I ever played, and it actually introduced me to a genre I'm still very fond to this day, which is space flight sims.
Oh, right,
I
yeah.
love those are fun.
Did you ever play Wing Commander Privateer?
I never got to that.
Oh, that was the best. That was by far the best Wing Commander, at least for me, because of how open-ended it was.
No, everyone
They
says
have it
it's
on
Wing Commander
GOG.com.
3.
Evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hey, Elvis.
You know, as far as Christmas memories, there's no one thing that jumps out. Although I will say, it doesn't really snow much here. Or at least when it does, it usually waits until like January. So, Christmas is mostly just dead trees, or dormant trees rather, and a lot of piles of crumpled up wet leaves.
That's kind of all we get here where I am. But we don't have to drive too far north to see snow, and I promised the kids that I will do that over the Christmas break so that they can play in the snow and make a snowman or make snow angels or do all those things kids should be doing.
There was one time I remember when it started snowing as everybody was inside. Usually we do lunch rather than dinner as far as family gatherings go. And I just went outside to get some fresh air for a little bit. I was snowing and I thought, oh, this is nice.
Scott's asking, do I miss the retros from Privateer? I miss everything about Privateer. I miss that you could like flirt with the female pilot and she would kind of flirt back, but she was still cool and a badass at the same time. It's hard to imagine anyone writing something like that into a modern game without there being some kind of outcry from 12 weirdos on Twitter. But I really loved when I got my ship as powerful as one volley of missiles would destroy the shield and the other volley of missile would destroy the ship. So you eventually got to a point where you were unstoppable. But yeah, I loved everything about that game.
You know, you can get snow out in Washington now that I think about it. The only snag is you got to go all the way out to the mountains.
Montañas.
Meanwhile, for me, I think my most happy theme with Christmas was the fact that Christmas was the only time of the year, roughly, that my family sort of took a break of being toxically dysfunctional. And even then, I think there's like one or two where it couldn't help itself, even then. Sometimes you just get some of those, you know, but the majority of the Christmases where they put that on break was very nice and a breath of fresh air.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, we just finished setting up the tree and turning on the lights, and my 1-year-old just flipped out and started dancing in front of it. So that's definitely what would be a core memory in the film Inside Out.
I think we've always had like this exact same Christmas tree for every Christmas until we moved, where it's like a tiny little like plastic artificial tree you put on a table that spins around and does like a light show around.
Oh, that's cool.
I think at one point it also did music, but the audio kind of broke after a couple of years because it was so old.
We got some person named Donna Troy saying Henro in the chat.
That would be Denise.
Yeah, I know. We all love Denise, and I love swapping baby stories with Denise. It's really, really cool to have someone to talk shop with.
Can't relate. I don't even have a girlfriend.
Yeah. Give it time. Get yourself together. Make yourself a priority, and you'll get there. All right. Well, you mentioned your first console, Brett. That makes me think back to my first console. This was I was living in Pittsburgh at the time, and it was only my mother. She had divorced my father at that point, so we were just living in a basement apartment in Pittsburgh, and we were broke ass hell. And but she made a special exception on Christmas to go and fetch me a knockoff Atari 2600, not even a genuine one, but one of the bootleg ones. And she went out on her own. She's 5'0", like 115 pounds, in the middle of the night in downtown Pittsburgh, and went and picked it up on foot, came back on foot, and I got my first video game console and played Pac-Man that very night. So that was something special.
I remember my first console. I think I still have the box it came in. It was it's covered in old school rendered green leaves because it was a bundle of the Super NES and Donkey Kong Country. And that was the first video game I ever played.
Well, you know what's really sad is I look back very fondly on my imitation Atari 2600, but I got one of those like joysticks you can connect to the television, and it has 50 games in it, and I was immediately bored with all of them after about 11 minutes. Like I had no idea why I ever enjoyed these games, and I can see why my parents were like really upset with them, because they were very annoying. They terribly annoying sound, and there really wasn't much point to them. But rose-colored glasses and all that. Guess you really can't go home again. Anyway.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that. So Donna says, get yourself a Raspberry Pi and install the old games on it. I've actually done that. I have like 3 Retro Pis. I gave one to my daughter, and loaded it up with all the NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis, and PlayStation classics. That is all the good ones, like Metroid, the Castlevanias, the Super Mario Brothers, Blaster Master, the first few Mega Man games, and on the Genesis, I gave her the Streets of Rage series, Golden Axe, Altered Beast, of course, because that was the launch title, a whole bunch of stuff. The Retro Pis are a blast. They're not hard to set up. They're cheap, and everyone loved them. I gave one of them to one of my old coworkers, and he flipped over it. So because that was the year the NES Classic came out, and he was actually complaining that they were all sold out. And I said, dude, I'll just build you a Pi. Here, take this. So he was grateful. So anyway,
You know who loves
explain. Okay, I just heard words that I did not understand.
Oh, well, Denise was talking about a Raspberry Pi, which is a palm-sized PC that runs off of the same processor as your smartphones. Okay, and it's a fully functional PC, except for storage you need to use a flash card. And you can install any operating system you want on it. It's essentially used for experimental applications, or workshops, or little like proof of concept things, or just for hobbyists. Like you say, hey, I want to make a node server that's like a WebSocket server that can communicate with this computer over here, send messages to this computer, so I can talk on my phone from the internet to activate something at home. The Raspberry Pi is a good use of that, because not only is it a computer, it has pins that can interface with real world devices. So a lot of hobbyists and makers will use them to make little fun applications at home. Or you can do fun things like Denise was suggesting, where you can install an image, an operating system image that's dedicated to turning it into a NES Classic, among other
Basically,
things.
a handheld emulator.
Yeah, well, it's not. Yeah, you plug it into the into a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse, just like any other computer. It's like a very, very small. Think of it as a miniature tower. It has memory. It has a CPU. It has everything a regular computer has. It just uses an ARM processor that you'd find in your phone instead of like the top end ones.
If you
Oh, Denise is saying I'll send you a link from Amazon. Yes, very cool. I highly recommend it. They're not expensive, Brett. And if you want to learn a little bit about computing concepts, you can't go wrong with one of those. Like we used one to run a Plex server for a little while, which basically it was a way to serve up content from a storage area network we had at home, and then we could watch movies we downloaded through this little tiny device. It's really just a fun little neat proof of concept toy, but it can also do real things if you cluster them together. Like a lot of people online, challenge themselves to see what can I make happen with this tiny machine. It's just a fun thing to do. So, go ahead.
If you say pi 3 times in a mirror in the bathroom, the Kickstarter for Cyberpunk will come back.
Oh, come on, Dylan.
It'll appear once again. It's happened before.
Did anyone here back that campaign?
I'm happy to say I did. I'm happy to say I did not.
Oh,
not one of them.
I was barely able to afford to back most of, like, literally all of the campaigns I've backed. Which is essentially just Quan Pool, I think, Cactus Coyote, and of course the Mythoverse. I think those are the only ones I've backed.
Interestingly enough, this was back when Jawbreakers had just come out, and the whole Comicsgate thing was just revving up into the mainstream. So yeah, I backed Cyberfrog. It was one of the first ones I backed, but I also backed like 54 other ones. So I lost track of a whole bunch of them, and I even forgot to fill out surveys for a few of them. So that's on me. But yeah, I still haven't gotten my my books from Cyberfrog, and I updated my address at the beginning of the year when I moved. So unless there was a mix-up, I just haven't got my book yet. So.
Well, that seems to be a problem with a lot of backers. They don't end up getting their.
Apparently, the variants went out first.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I was one of the first rounds of backers. I think I was one of the first, 400 or 500 of them for the first campaign, because I backed it like the day it launched, because that's just what I did. When I saw a new campaign, I just backed it. And so I wanted to support as many of these indie creators as I could. And back then, Ethan was still pulling his nice guy routine. He hadn't discovered The Last Jedi yet, and decided to go down that road. But he was just really concealing his true nature, as it turned out.
I think a friend of mine backed Lone Star, so they got that comic in, and then became disappointed by it, and gave it to me so I could see it for myself, and ultimately end up disappointed by it too.
Yeah.
I got access to a digital version of Lone Star through an undisclosed source. But
Same.
all I will say is, if this was the vibe I got was it was an amateur attempt at being pulpy.
I mean, the artwork and the action scenes were pretty great. The writing itself had much to be desired.
And Lone Star civilian outfit too. Don't forget about that.
Yeah.
Well, did Mike write the book also?
I
think he did.
So. Yeah, I think he tried to be a one-man show on it.
Yeah. It's Image all over again. But anyway.
Yep.
I'll show them how it's done.
Yeah, but you've got difference is you have people helping you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, fair point.
Oh, Scott says you're getting mine, Dan. I assume that's Cyberfrog. If so, thanks.
Or you could be.
I'd
Wrath, which
I'd rather just get it from the campaign. I'm just curious to see how long it would take.
So you're not going to sail the high seas?
Nah, I'm not gonna sail the high. I mean, I watched John De La Rosa's review of it, and I was not impressed with the story. I mean, I knew I was going to be impressed by the artwork. I mean, those guys are absolute kings in their ballywick. I mean, Ethan's a really strong penciler, to say the least, and Kyle, oh my god, I had no idea he was that good. But I would love to have him color my work. That guy's a king. But yeah, apparently the story starts over twice, which is very strange, and nothing really happens. It's just a recap. It's kind of like a trailer for the story. It's like we don't even really see what's actually happening in present day. It's just that this is how we got here twice.
Yeah, it's like a recap of like the original 90s book.
Yeah.
A $25
Scott says, no, my book, Dan. Wrath. Sorry, I misunderstood. The timing of your comment came through right as I was talking about Cyberfrog. So, anyway, cool. Yeah, I mean, I've read Wrath. I don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't read it, but it's pretty solid. The art's great.
I just would really like to read Wrath myself because the premise is so goddamn similar to mine. I don't know why I get all the coincidences when it comes to creative works. It baffles me.
Yeah.
really, because I always get a JoJo vibe off of Wrath.
Well, the thing is, the whole using traumas to create things to do fighting for you, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a very cool concept, and I like that the power and the premise comes from the characterization, which is a strong way to go in my opinion. The action serves a purpose to develop the actual, the protagonist. And we learn more about him as he develops as a character. So yeah, I'm gonna make a proper review video of that when I have some time over the holiday break. And
Speaking of which, I know I recorded a first impressions video of my proof copy for Changeling, and I know Matt did for his. How about you, Dan?
Yeah, I did for mine. I haven't had time to edit together the reaction videos. I have all the footage, and I'll probably get that out this week, before the end of the week. Yeah. I think my daughter joined in and gave her impressions too.
Yeah, she liked it.
Yeah, she did. Speaking of which, let me see here. I'm going to swap over to my StreamYard session so everyone can have a look at my print proof. I did not have a chance to share this off when Matt and Brett were showing off theirs because I hadn't yet received it. But I have it now, and I want to have a chance to flip through it with you guys watching. So
Yeah.
let me see. Here we go.
I see it on the screen right now.
Nice. So I got the Antonella variant right here, and the retail variant right there. So just gonna go ahead and open her up. Now the cover, I brought this up to Wicked. This may have something to do with the binding or the trimming process. The cover art is slightly left justified. So I'm gonna. I submitted some corrected art for that, and hopefully that will be fixed. But other than that, the book is flawlessly printed. It arrived in pristine condition and a nice rigid mailer. So
Not a Gemini, but it got the job done.
it got the job done.
Now, Matt, I heard that there was some issue with Mythics, its printing, or did I misread that?
The dimensions were off, so we had to redo the dimensions, and it was based off of more of a misunderstanding on the dimension sizes rather than anything else.
And sadly, we did not catch it until just now.
Well, the artwork fit the template. It was just oddly arranged. Like some of the panels left a lot of white space along the bottom. But we had an issue with the Changeling print proof because it was initially formatted for magazine dimensions, like 8.5 by 11. So we actually had to have Ginger like completely redo the pages, make it fit the new template. But Mythics fit just fine. It was just the panels were a little bit narrower, and in some cases there was a lot of empty space along the bottom.
Oh, did Wicked not discuss formatting with you guys before you started the project?
They did, and I fit the art into the template, and it fit the template. It was just the art was just a little bit narrower. It was like vertically it fit, and horizontally it didn't. It was odd. It was odd.
Okay, so does that? I mean, I have the right things for right measurements for the comic. So does that mean I have to scale it down, maybe, or?
No, as long as it's 6.88 by 10.5, and you put all the art inside the boundaries, it will be fine.
Oh, okay.
I honestly think this glossy magazine paper we went for was the right call. I don't know. It just, a criticism people usually give for these is that you get the glare, but I don't know why, but they just look nice. That gloss.
And they feel nice too. And I just want to say this: Leandro's art has always impressed me, but when it's printed and reduced this far beyond down below the original aspect ratio, it looks absolutely stunning. I mean, the lines are so crisp, the details are just immaculate, and I could not be happier with his artwork. It really does turn this into a grade A like noir action story.
I know like John De La Rose prefers a more matte finish with the paper because it doesn't have the glare, but I don't know, in my opinion, like, gloss just has a little bit more, it looks more prestigious. Matte just has this kind of cheap feel to me.
It seems a lot more satisfying to look at.
It's more satisfying to hold, too.
Yeah.
You mean a gloss comic?
Yeah.
Like the... Yeah, glossy comic.
Yeah, and this book is...
There's different grades of gloss as well, but I know several of the ones I have, especially for Batman, like Year One, Dark Victory, Long Halloween, they're all in glossy format and they're gorgeous. So I don't see what problem.
Some people just don't like the glare that you get with gloss, which is a legitimate problem.
Yeah, it's just a matter of personal preference. I don't mind it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like I said, like you can like matte if you want. I just think it's a little cheap looking.
Well, one thing you can't say about this book is that it's cheap looking. This book is the opposite of cheap looking.
That's actually, I mean, like, even if people didn't like our comics, the one thing they could never take from us is that they look nice.
Yeah. I mean...
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's the credits page there, and it's solid black without fluting. Logo design Bob Stone, pencils Leandro. There's the co-publisher credits. It's all right there. So, and there, of course, is the Mythoverse tree. And then, of course, the QR code there. If you were to scan that QR code with your phone, you would be taken right to the digital version of this book. And that would have all the fan art. That would have the pre-production diary in it, and a few other things. So. And there's of course there's of course is our website and Wicked Publishing, and that looks absolutely great. And of course here is the Antonella variant, which is the same book with the 1/3 of the 3-part cover. So if you had all three number ones and put them side by side, they make a nice little triptych image. So very proud of that. Everything looks and feels great, and we just have a couple of issues that we need to resolve that will require another proofing just to make sure everything's good with Mythics and with this cover. And then, remains to be seen when they will actually go to print. I know the printer that Wicked Publishing is currently using is in a transitional period right now, where he's going to hire on a new employee to help him handle the load. But we have a couple of backup options if that will turn out to delay the production too much longer. I really don't want to drag this out any longer than we have to, especially because we have the print proofs and everything else is fulfilled. We just got to send out these books, and then we can move on to the next phase. And we have a lot of plans on that score. In fact, I teased this out at the last stream, but I want to show you the completed page now. If you look,
I think everyone in the panel has actually seen it on Twitter already.
Cool. Well, in case you have not, here's the completed page 1 for issue 2, and as spoilers, well, and as Brett did point out, it is thematically similar to the first page in issue 1, where she's standing at that same angle on a building, looking out over the city. In this case, she's looking out over Blessed Nativity Catholic School for Girls.
Do a flip.
And she's about to do a flip.
What's that ever infamous saying? It's like poetry, it rhymes.
It's like poetry, sort of, it rhymes, so hopefully it'll work.
It's like poetry, it's gay. I'm just kidding.
Oh no.
Well, Adobe is gay, so.
I mean, technically not wrong.
Technically it's not wrong, no.
Not as gay as Brett, who is the big gay.
Yeah, Brett is definitely the big gay, so no arguments there.
You are technically correct, which is the best kind of correct.
You know, that reminds me of what's going on with Steven Universe. There was that parody. I want to say it was Larry Partridge or whatever, that animator. But it was a parody song called Stephen King
Brett
of the
is a
Lesbians.
big gay?
Isn't that what...
Who just walked in?
Early on.
Oh god.
That was my 8-year-old calling you the big gay.
Big gay.
She's still there?
Canon.
No, she walked in to give me cookies.
Wrong time.
Just having to come in at the best time.
Nice work, Alabaster.
You're welcome. But no,
gotta teach the important lessons to the next generation.
yes, you do. But no, what I was saying is, in Steven Universe, apparently Steven is technically the son reincarnation of Pink Diamond, which is the leader of the Gems.
I am my
So he's royalty within that culture, and because they're all female and you know, the themes of the show, he literally is Stephen King of the Lesbians.
And technically speaking, they're all a bunch of sentient rocks, so they have no gender. Just for whatever reason, they all turn to women. They'll look feminine. They all look and refer to each other as women, which I find incredibly weird, but it's whatever.
But all you need to take away from that is the people working on that show did not think through what they were doing.
Well, that's what happens when you
or
put...
in some places, maybe they thought too hard.
So, and with that, with them referring to each other mostly as women and taking on mostly feminine forms, I find it weird that the child of a diamond became a male, but I guess that might be Greg's maleness kind of interfering with that. I don't fucking know.
It's this toxic masculinity.
His overpowering testosterone resulted.
Well,
I just love the fact that Steven Universe is like one of the very, 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 very few cartoons that actually made a decent dad character.
Isn't it sad that that's such a rare thing to see? To the point where I see it in a movie and it stands out.
Greg is like one of the best cartoon dads I have ever seen.
I don't watch the show, so I wouldn't know, but
that is true, though.
That's like a depressing thing.
I'm trying to think of one at the top of my head. And to prove it,
and nothing is coming up, is it?
Well,
you know what? You're gonna hate me for saying this, but
I mean, I guess another one would be like,
Dad from Twilight.
I guess Professor Plutonium, maybe.
Professor Plutonium.
Yeah, I guess he might be.
It's you, Tony.
Is it Utonium?
And-
It's been too goddamn long.
And then, of course, I mean, I know Donald's Huey, Dewey, and Louie's uncle, but he's a father figure to them, and as much as I'm not a fan of the new DuckTales, at least I can tell he's trying his hardest to be a good role model for them.
I think the new DuckTales is pretty good from what I've seen.
I mean, it's at least respectable to the original source.
And they don't shove anything down your throat.
Also true. That's true.
It just wants to do fun things with the license.
So I've been talking to Brett about that Runaways show, that Marvel Runaways.
Do we really need to get on the English?
Well, this is what happens when you put topical sociological expression over artistic expression.
The short version is everything Dylan reveals about the Runaways TV show makes me hate it more because I love that comic. It was very the original Brian K. Vaughan run was like very influential on me. I mean, as a comic fan, it was one of the books that helped me get back into the hobby in high school. So
Right.
I have a lot of personal attachment to it.
You know, I think I may have thought of another actually pretty good cartoon dad. I'm not sure if he counts because it's anime, and anime typically has better characters than Western cartoons. And that would be Piccolo.
He does not get enough credit. He doesn't get enough credit.
But in all honesty, after like Super in the later parts of Z made Vegeta actually not that bad of a dad.
Yeah, but Goku he cancels everything out about being.
Well, that's the thing. Toriyama didn't really take the child-parent dynamic too much into account when writing the story.
Yeah, it was still mostly, hey, action fights.
Yeah,
Yep.
like now that I'm older, I'll pretty much never defend DBZ's writing. Like I'm still fond of it. I love it to death. I will love DBZ to the day I die.
But the writing,
But
though.
the writing is not anywhere near.
Regular Dragon Ball had better writing, I will
Yes,
say.
it did.
It did.
That was more of an
It was more
adventure
creative.
story.
Yeah. And in full honesty, I wish they stuck like if they just didn't hear fan complaints and stuck with trying to make Gohan the new main character after Goku's death.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Dragon Ball Z would have been better off if they kept to that. But also, if they also didn't make Gohan the bigger gay than Brett, but with the whole Saiyaman thing. Like, I understand having to make the Saiyaman alter ego, but did it have to be that? I absolutely hated the Saiyaman parts because, oh my god, just fucking put a bullet through my brain that was so unbearable to watch.
Yeah. I think what I like about... I mean, as much as I'm a huge fan of older anime, I think what I like about newer series like My Hero Academia and all that, I think they take the best aspects of the older series and they learn from their mistakes. And I think when it comes to storytelling, it's more of what you would want to see in those kind of shonen stories. I think that's how like series like My Hero and Demon Slayer really like excel.
Well, we're coming up close. We have 15 minutes left in this hour, so before I boot up a game, I wanted to talk, I wanted to go back over what our plans were for next year. Well, obviously Adobe Kroger is in production, issue 2, and that's not going to stop. Leandro is already working on the next page. So how are we going to keep this up? Brett and Matt both Matt, you've more or less completed the script for issue 2, correct?
Pretty much. So dialogue, I'm still working on editing.
Okay. And at the same time you're doing this, am I mistaken in that you are editing issue 1 again?
Yep.
And refining it, taking the criticisms that you heard into account and improving it. And what were your plans for this when it was done? You mentioned it to me, but I'd rather hear it from you.
Well, right now, I plan on using it to send out with the next Mythics Kickstarter instead of the one that was produced. So
Okay.
that, give me some time to learn how to letter. I don't think I'm doing a very good job with it, but it's going to be as good as it can get by the time we get to the Kickstarter.
Okay. And bear in mind, we have resources. I know people who can letter and that work very fast. If that's a concern for you and the campaign does well enough, why don't we just have that person letter it for you? Would you be open to that idea, Matt?
To what now?
To
You were breaking up on my end.
No worries. I was going to say, if lettering is your concern, we know several people who can letter very well and do it frequently and have done a lot of it. If the campaign does well enough, would you be open to just having that person or one of our other contacts letter it for you? Save you the headache? The job will get done right?
Right now, I probably won't say that it would because with all the mistakes I saw while relettering, I might have to be the one who does the lettering.
Okay. It's up to you, man.
That one reviewer went in raw.
Yeah, but you know what? We need to hear these things now. While we're just before we get out of the gate and invest too much more time and money in it, we need to get it right. So we really need this kind of feedback, and we've all gotten it. I'm definitely adjusting my approach for issue 2 based on a lot of the feedback I've gotten, and I think it's going to be all the better for it. And I think Brett can agree that the same will hold true for Changeling issue 2.
I'll be right back, guys.
All right. Do you agree, Brett?
Sure.
Yes, no, maybe. You think the criticism's been valuable?
I'm sorry. I could only make out like every other word you were saying, Dan.
Oh, no worries. What I was saying was, do you feel that the criticism has been valuable on your end as well?
Oh, I showed it. I showed the review to Victor, and he said he definitely took notes of it, and he said it was actually good to get all that constructive criticism. So you know what, if he took something away from it, then I think Justin had good points to make about all of our books.
Yeah, not just Justin. I mean, if you go to the Mythoverse YouTube page, there's a whole playlist of video reviews, and they've all been very helpful. So I'm really glad that we've gotten it, and really glad that everyone's taken the time to tell us what they thought. So, yeah, so with that in mind, our plans for next year, as I mentioned on the last stream, there are going to be no further joint Kickstarter campaigns. Like, all three of us will not run the same campaign at the same time. We're going to run 3 campaigns one at a time. The first one will be Matt, and then Brett, and then me last. So we're going to do them slightly differently. It'll be easier to budget because we'll only have one book to budget for. It'll be easier to hit a deadline because there's only going to be 1 book rather than 3. All trying to race for that same deadline. So I think that will work out much better for us. And at the same time, we of course are going to be beefing up our offerings for the Patreon and the Subscribe Star. And we also have our brand new Mythomerch store. I have that up on screen right now. And we've had several orders already. So I'm going to send out a mug and some Christmas cards. So if any of the stuff on the Mythomerch store, apparel, mugs, puzzles, wall art, any of that stuff catches your eye, it would really help us out. So,
Dan, is your internet doing all right? Is it healthy? Oh, and the live stream is offline now.
okay.
Yeesh.
Well, in
Yeah,
that
it's
case,
not.
Oh, and now it's back.
all right,
What?
it's fine.
So-
Yeah, we're gonna have some hiccups. It's storming down here, so if it goes offline, don't worry about it. So with all that said, yeah, check out the Mythomerch store. Check out my pinned tweet. It links directly to a sample of Adobe Kroger Knight Errant, the ebook. You can read the first chapter there. I have that up on screen right now. If that's your cup of tea, if you like ebooks, download this. It's real cheap, and it's a great story, 140,000 words. And I'm deep in book 2 right now. I just had an epiphany last week where I completely trashed chapter 1 and replaced it with a much better one. And of course, I got that idea at like 2:30 in the morning. So I had to get up and write everything down before I fell back asleep and forgot everything I had come up with. So, it's also available on audiobook. So,
Okay, I'm back.
all right, welcome back. So that would definitely help us out, because any proceeds I get from Adobe Kroger in the novel form or in the audiobook form goes right back to the Mythoverse coffers, and I'm going to use that to further fund any Mythoverse endeavors, along with the Mythomerch store and the Patreon and the Subscribe Star.
Okay, so what I missed?
Well, you missed my internet going down and the stream going offline for a moment, but
Oh wow, I came in at a good time.
yeah, I'm not showing any frames dropped on my end, so I'm thinking it's on YouTube's end. Yep. Right now the stream is not healthy. The video output is low, but OBS is not reporting any dropped frames.
It's got tuberculosis.
God damn it, Arthur. Need a little bit more faith.
Okay, so Miss Serena 1000 is asking, just let me know when your comics become available on your store. Well,
Yeah, sure.
if you got
if you go to mythomerch.com, there's a link to the store right there. That's the Wicked store. That's the Wicked store. And I do have digital downloads available for purchase. I just have not set it up yet. So I will certainly get that situated, and we'll probably also see about getting our books on Comixology as well. So we will announce that on our Twitter accounts once that's all ready. So I'll make that a priority in the coming weeks.
Yeah, no, how excited I was, even like using the built-in PDF reader on Google Drive to read those comics and having to readjust the screen so that I could scroll through each of them. While I was on my break at Whataburger.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, as excited as you were, it wasn't nearly as excited as we were to see them done, because we began planning this thing like late in 2018. That is the Mythoverse. But I began planning Adobe Kroger #1 in the summer of 2018. So it's been a year and a half for me since I began work on this book, and I just showed off the print version of it. And that's sometimes how long it takes. So if you're making your own book, just stick with it, and you will eventually get it done and hold it in your hands, and it's a beautiful thing.
Start with page 1.
Start with page 1 and keep going until you get to the end, and then stop. That's the end. That's the key.
I would say if you can at least knock out a page a day, you're done within a month.
Yeah, that's if you're the artist, writer, creator, and all that. If you're just a writer and you're working with an artist, just take some time before you settle on one. Just because they can draw a pretty picture on Twitter doesn't mean that they have good, solid work ethic and reliability. I went through, I think, 3 or 4 artists who are roughly on Leandro's level, but I think he surpasses all of them in terms of his technical skill. But I went through at least 3 or 4 of them before I found one that was reliable enough to turn artwork around as fast as I needed it to. And if I did not have Leandro drawing Adobe Kroger, it would not have been done on time. And I would like to stress that the digital copy of Adobe Kroger was fulfilled on the deadline. That's because Leandro busted his ass, finished the art like a week and a half ahead of time, and then I was able to get it over to Eric to letter, and he turned that around in a day and a half, 2 days. So I pick the people I pick after a lot of vetting via commissions or other things, just to make sure that, you know, they're fast enough, they're good enough, and that they're actually pleasant to work with. And thus far, I have not gone wrong on any of those counts. So if you are the writer and or project manager, just take your time and pick your coworkers with, you know, great deliberation, or it might bite you in the ass.
Right. You know,
I mean, like,
go ahead.
I mean, I was gonna say, like, everyone knows that, everyone knows that I've said, like, multiple times that with Victor and Ginger was a complete roll of the dice, and I'm lucky it worked out as well as it did, but it wasn't without its problems, just mostly because it was more work than they were used to. But I think they did manage to at least rise to the challenge.
Yeah, it was there, like you said, it was the first time tackling a project of this magnitude, and you know, they were, for the most part, they were first timers. I mean, has Victor ever published a comic before?
No, he is not.
Yeah, so this is the first time he's done it, so you're gonna have growing pains. You know, has Ginger ever colored a whole comic before?
She has not.
Yeah, but she did it, and Victor did it, and now you have the proof right there with you. You're holding the book.
Also, Mr. Arena said, but I only see the prints and other comics are available after I clicked on the Buy the Comics button.
Yes, the link goes to the Wicked store, which is where the print copies will be sold. The digital copies are not available on the Wicked store yet. I'm probably going to need to set that up on our own store. I have the software installed that will allow me to fulfill digital orders, and I have it set up for audiobooks and for any other file I want to make available for download. So I'll take care of that this week, and also I will see what needs to be done to get our books on Comixology as well.
I would say the best thing you can do, Mr. Arena, is just follow the Mythoverse Twitter, because that's where we post all the official news.
Right. So yeah, just follow at Mythoverse or at Dan_Sakuro or at Celtic Brett. That's spell that for.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem.
Or you can just drop the link in the chat. You've already dropped the link for the Twitter, Mythoverse Twitter in there. So follow that one or any one of our accounts, and you'll get the update when those downloads are available. I'm going to make that my priority now. Okay, so with all that being said, it's 10 o'clock, and that means we're in hour 2. So I'm going to go ahead and get a game booted up. And what we do in hour 2, for anyone who hasn't watched us before, is we just talk about whatever we want. We talk about movies, anime, whatever comes to mind, while I put a nice game on the screen for you to watch. So
I'm still trying to stop obsessing over this monster picture I found that I linked in the writers chat.
The snake spider.
Monster or mobster?
The snake spider thing. I don't know what it is about it, but it just awakens the world builder in me, and I just been obsessively researching and theory crafting like all day long on that thing.
Nice. It was a pretty neat design. Don't think I've ever seen it. Don't think I've ever seen that before.
It is so good, and I never would have thought it before, even as me, who is a spider lover and a snake lover. So I can't. I'm disappointed in myself that I never thought of anything like that before.
Hey, I had to dip out. I'm back.
Oh, I guess it has to dip out again.
Yeah, that's fine. Come back in when you can.
But yeah, as you guys can see in the writer's thing, me and Grimmelkin has just been just geeking over the whole thing. Be just spewing out my loads upon loads of research and theory crafting that I've put into the damn thing.
Well, it's really cool when that spigot opens up and everything just flows out. Something that just takes the right song or the right image. I shared my most listened to Spotify playlist on Twitter recently, and it was like 80% Sabaton. Because I've been listening to a lot of Sabaton this past couple of years, because that's what usually gets my juices flowing to write Adobe Kroger stories for some reason. I don't know why. No, of
I
course.
listen to a lot of indie pop when I write Changeling. I just, for some reason, it just feels like it fits.
Yep. It's Sabaton and a lot of lo-fi indie punk for me.
I swear I'm like muted every 5 fucking seconds. Jesus Christ.
Okay. So the game I'm going to play tonight is Valiant Hearts: The Great War, which is like an adventure game set in the Great War, or the tail end of the Great War. It's probably one of the
aftermath of World War One.
Towards the end of it. Well, it sort of starts. It covers the entire span of time, and you follow like 3 or 4 different characters. Like the character on screen right now is the primary protagonist, and he's an old man who is drafted back into service for the Great War, and I don't want to spoil anything because the story is actually very poignant and very heartbreaking. I made the mistake of letting my daughter watch as I was finishing it, and she cried for the entire night. She was so upset by it. So, needless to say, I should have vetted the game a bit better.
Oh God! Wait till she reads Changeling, she will weep.
And meanwhile, don't let her ever read Rapture.
Well, not
Don't
now.
let her read my book.
Not at the moment, anyway.
Oh, what the hell am I saying? Rapture is a perfectly fine family-friendly book.
I feel like I am the only one who went out of his way to not make a book that was aimed at a more mature audience.
Well, that's good. One of us has to do it.
Exactly.
Well, that's because back when I first started conceptualizing Changeling, when I took a look at the landscape of indie comics, at least in our corner of the internet, I was seeing a bunch of comics that were made for, well, frankly, adult men. When now, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's like, I'm just thinking to myself, and why is nobody trying to make a comic for a younger audience in here?
You can only see
I think it's
so
mostly
many 90s style grindhouse comics before you're like, okay, is there anything else?
I think it's mostly because the only ones that are really going out in sale were like really marketable and family-friendly stuff. So people have like an inflated sense that there's an opening in the market for stuff like that, when there may possibly, when actuality might be a bit smaller than we guesstimate. But it really does seem like there's like more of a open market for that kind of stuff, more of a demand.
I haven't really gotten a chance to talk about my book. I keep having to dip out. I feel like crap because I was like getting ready to, and then I had to go do something. Then I get called back again. And I'm like, oh, I missed my chance.
Now, is this I can't remember what it's called, but is this the game just from the little snippet of old man gets drafted into World War One? Is this that game where the main character is like that obese looking French soldier with a huge mustache?
Oh, that guy's actually American.
Really?
Yes.
Oh yeah, sometimes they did join the... He had a French army helmet, was why I asked.
Yeah, he was a French soldier, but he was born in New York.
New York.
Always gotta love how America always joined like the back end of both world wars. You had to take credit for everything.
Well, because in both cases, initially we wanted nothing to do with either of them.
Which was honestly probably the best decision.
Oh, it incredibly was, but that was funny. Like, as much as I don't want to give communists any credit for anything, but communist Russia had more to do with ending the war than America ever had.
But imagine how quickly they could have ended it if there hadn't been any purges.
Hey, buddy, are you okay?
Yeah.
Is it the dog, Dylan?
Huh?
No, there was one major way in which America contributed to the First World War all throughout it, and that was in munitions.
Oh yeah,
Especially
the weapons trade.
huge amount of weapons were pouring out of America.
I think that's why we had the Roaring '20s, was because of the profit made from that, and then, oh boy, did we crash hard.
Yeah, I kept having to dip out. It's rough dealing with Boston's. They're a bunch of assholes.
I have never heard any good thing about the natives of Boston. With all due respect to anyone listening who is from Boston.
No. I meant Boston.
I think that could be mostly said for most people on the East Coast.
I'm talking about Boston Terriers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that probably explains it, Dylan.
Yeah, I'm like super just like frustrated and
So it wasn't Wicket then?
no, I'm frustrated. I think I'm ready to just freaking dip out. I'm like, I was gonna talk about my book a bit. Like, damn it.
Well, I might as well take the opportunity right now while you got it.
Oh no, I'm a little embarrassed now.
Well then,
On a scale of 1 to Dylan, how lewd is it?
What?
Angel dust.
Oh.
Oh.
No, I was just gonna say, as soon as I get my script done here soon, I was probably gonna pass it on to one of you guys, one of you three, and then I'll get started. I know my book's like further down the line, but I'm thinking about just getting it done. Because I think I can work within a good time
At
frame.
the train depot in Paris, trying to reach his regiment at
Considering
platform
how
21,
fast I
Emile
pump out
would
art.
meet the man he would soon fight alongside. The man who would come to be his truest friend.
I don't think the next set of comic series isn't really going to be out for a while still.
I know, I just wanted to kind of get it out of the way. You know, since now I have time.
Yeah, fair enough. Man, they're really bullying this guy, aren't they?
What guy?
In the game.
Yeah, this is where you meet the guy that was mentioned earlier on the train. And the first puzzle is to get these guys away from him so you can meet him. Because, like, if you go any closer, he says, "Get away." So,
actually, is this where, you, like, since the guy is American and going to like the French, helping out the French, is this like where they start doing like the international relief force?
I think so. The game is actually full of it has its own little encyclopedia that's contextual. So when you encounter something like him that's has historical significance, you can go into the encyclopedia and it'll tell you all the facts about it.
If I remember right, in World War I, they had like the first ever worldwide international fighting force with like a platoon.
French Foreign Legion.
Yeah, it was like an entire legion, or like an entire battalion of soldiers from many different different countries.
You sound like you're describing the French Foreign Legion there, Dust.
Maybe. I just know there was something like that in World War I.
I'm gonna say like why are they?
It's
French
been
French Foreign Legion has been active since 1831.
it's been entirely too long since I've studied world history. I've forgotten most everything, to be perfectly honest. Most everything I have to like remind myself of stuff.
Well, it's just funny explaining to somebody how the Napoleonic Wars is responsible for the shit show in the Middle East right now.
As well as most like a modern military structure and stratagem.
Yeah.
Thanks,
But
Napoleon.
like showing them the domino effect of how we got to where we are. It's fun blowing people's mind. It's fun having your mind blown.
Thank you, I'm ready.
Okay, Dylan just messaged me to say he's gonna dip out.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Dylan.
You have a good one, Dylan.
Bye, Dylan.
August 21st, 1914.
I see you there, Brett, doing your
Romeo's
JoJo
regiment was sent to
meme.
fight against the 71st German division.
What are you talking
led by
about?
Baron
I see you.
The general
doing your
cheer
Joe
of the
jokes.
first hours dissipated into the fear of French combat.
Also, while we were talking, I got another concept sketch from Ginger.
Oh yeah. Is it more to do with that one particular character?
No, it does
No.
not. It's a lot of pre-production stuff that Ginger's taking care of, and I mean, she's really enjoying doing it. Like this is, I mean, she went to school to be a concept artist for video games.
And well, now she's doing it for comics, so I mean, roughly on the ball.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I think she just really enjoys all the free reign I give her, just because like I don't even really have to worry about giving her a lot of direction because I know whatever she'll make, I'll probably like it.
Kablooey.
Damn it, I got... I'm totally boomering this.
Need to learn when to gun it and when to not.
Right.
I think with that one you need to gun it.
Right.
You wait until after your side's artillery strike is done. Wait for that creeping barrage, fam.
There you go.
I can't see what's going on. I don't have the stream up on YouTube.
Dan has to avoid getting shot by artillery shells while he's carrying a flag.
Yeah,
Yeah, because he's the standard carrier.
this is the first battle, so everyone hasn't quite encountered the horrors of war yet.
I was kind of wondering like, oh, first battle. Okay. Oh, I see the thumbnail. They're still wearing that the blues and red. Oh, that does not go well for them. Have you watched the Great War YouTube channel?
Yeah.
I haven't.
That does not go well for them at all.
Yeah, it's a target. That's what I said about the Sith troopers. You know what bright red uniforms are? They're targets.
If this is the battle that I think it is, this is. Oh my gosh.
Speaking of like World War I stuff, it sort of reminds me of how much like little details I appreciate with the Bivsy Pop's Has-Been Hotel, where a news anchor is called Tom Trench, and his head is literally a gas mask. Like you would never get what that means unless you've actually like researched what it means to be named Trench and have a gas mask
Yeah.
for a head.
Already devastated by the war.
Horrible stuff.
A man with
I think I also like how he has like blonde hair, which sort of like indicates on what side of the trenches he was on.
Oh, wow.
German.
Yeah.
Battle of the Marne that Freddy finally picked up the trail of the
Which means he would be the one side that would have the gas mask, because they would be the only ones who know what they would be doing. Oh yeah, it's just the little details like I love.
Yeah, here's the information about the Americans and the French army.
Prussian battle flag.
No, not top of my head. Did anyone ever watch the fourth season of Blackadder? Because that was in a trench on the British side of World War One.
Trench warfare is absolute hell.
I was amazed that if you watch it, it's kind of amazed how they're able to get any comedy out of it. There's like one episode where they send a carrier pigeon to deliver them orders, and Blackadder, being Blackadder, decides to just shoot the pigeon. Because he did.
Why not?
And it was the dude.
And he's. No, I'll get to that. But yeah, he's saying, with 300 men getting shot a day, who's gonna miss a single pigeon? And then they read the note that the pigeon came with, and they find out that now shooting carrier pigeons is a court-martialable offense, and it just so happens to turn out that that pigeon is the general's prized pigeon. And of course Blackadder gets court-martialed, and he's sentenced to death by firing squad. And what is funny about it is that while he's waiting for his execution, his Batman Baldric comes in and says that he's brought him a bag full of things to help him escape out of prison. It's a bunch of useless crap. Because Baldric's stupid like that.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Totally should watch Blackadder. It's a great show.
Don't fret, my boy. If ever you should falter, General Melchett is right behind you. Approximately 30 miles are behind you.
I think one of the funniest scenes is like in the first episode where they hear that they're going to be going over the top, and Blackadder's response is, I think it just means Field Marshal Hagen's looking to move his direct cabinet 6 inches closer to Berlin.
That kind of black humor is it's tragic but funny.
Yes, it is. No, in the final episode, so Baldric actually asks why did they get in, how they got into that mess in the first place, and Blackadder explains it as, well, there was an intricate system of alliances, and the whole idea was that they would all balance each other out, and no one would want to fight each other. There was just one problem.
Literally everyone.
Bollocks.
Literally everyone wants to fight each other.
Well, what Blackadder said, it was bollocks.
All it did was make sure that if any one person went to war, everyone...
It would cause a chain reaction.
Right.
Because if I remember right, how World War One started is I think Austria's air,
The Hungarian Empire was looking for an excuse to invade Serbia,
and then
some Serbian nationalists, one guy who did in Austria-Hungary who had the authority to say no, we're not going to war with Serbia. That was their excuse to go to war with Serbia.
And then I think it was France and Russia was allied with one and the other, and they had some little beef against each other, and so they wanted to go to war against one another. Then that dragged the UK and Germany into it.
No, so Russia was very adamant about we're backing Serbia, and Germany tacitly said, well, we're backing Austria-Hungary, while at the same time saying, Austria-Hungary, please don't do this, please don't start the war on. They did it anyway, and France was allied with Russia because when what's his name, Otto von Bismarck, Chancellor of Germany, he had made an alliance with Germany and Russia, but then Wilhelm II said, nah, German-speaking nations unite, and decided he wanted to ally with Austria, but he couldn't do that without breaking ties with Russia, so he did do that, even though that meant that if they ever went to war with like France or somebody, it was going to be a two-front war.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What are the odds of that?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Well,
Mama.
apparently the
Mama.
right amount of
Bye.
that.
I'm playing.
Here's another good line.
Hello.
Why did the...
Hi.
Do you mean
Hi,
why did the war start?
Dada.
Yes,
Hi,
the
Dada.
war started because
Bye.
of the vile Hun and his villainous empire building.
Whoa.
George, the British
Hi.
Empire at present covers a
Whoa,
quarter of the globe,
whoa.
while the German Empire consists of a
Hi.
small sausage factory in
Hi,
Tanganyika.
Dada.
I hardly think we can be entirely absolved of blame on the imperialistic front.
And then, of course, because of how World War One ended
Oh,
with Germany
Dada.
shouldering all of the burdens because it's apparently all their fault, that pretty much instantly caused World War II to be inevitable, which is why I always call World War II to be more World War One Part 2 Electric Boogaloo.
It really was. There was one guy saying, after this, when the treaty was signed, we haven't gotten ourselves peace. We've gotten ourselves a 20-year truce, and he was like only a couple of months off.
Yeah.
It really is kind of disgusting. Like, imperialism itself, yeah, is kind of bad, but France and Britain especially, the Dutch to an extent, Russia to a much smaller extent, they all had their empires, and they had kind of status quo going, and Germany justifiably said we want our own empire too, and they were like, no, it's not
Like, nah,
happening.
how about no?
You are not allowed to have we're allowed to have empires, you're not.
Yeah.
That was Britain's main. If
And
they
then
have a self-serving reason, the keeping Germany from having their own empire was the main reason.
And then they broke apart the German quote-unquote empire and also broke apart German heartland too.
Yeah.
So that was just a big old catastrophic mess.
No shit.
As I said, that pretty much guaranteed World War II to inevitably happen, if not by Hitler's hand, then by someone else's hand.
Oh yeah, they were rearming even before Hitler.
Like, World War II was already brewing before Hitler won the election.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I still love the fact that literally everyone in the entire world, save for a select few of Germans, pretty much loved Hitler until Poland. When Poland happened, then many people started not liking Hitler, and even then there were still quite a few who did, on a geopolitical worldwide scale. Let's not forget, Hitler was on, Time's Person of the Year segment.
Yep.
Did you see what I tweeted in response to Time magazine when they announced Greta Thunberg?
Yeah.
I posted quite a few about how they had her being a person of the year and not the literal 16-year-old who made 16 or 14-year-old who designed his own machine to de-plastic the ocean and is currently leading a scientific effort to get plastic out of the world's oceans. Let's not give that guy President of the Year, but just some girl who just complained.
From a script that was written for her.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
I'm not sure what's going on in the world. I haven't really figured out what's been going on in the world for quite a few years now.
Globalism.
While we're still kind of on World War One, has anyone gotten a run to watching Joyeux Noel?
I saw a couple of years ago a clip from it. I don't think I've seen the movie.
If anyone doesn't know that movie, it's a movie about a real event that happened during World War One, where you had, I think it was what, a British, French, and Germans decided to lay down their arms and hold a Christmas truce.
Oh yeah, the Christmas truce where they all play soccer in Dead Man's Land.
Yeah, and I've actually heard a lot of what's really heartbreaking about that story is that during that time they all came to really like each other, and they knew that
as soon as the day was over with, they would have each other in their cross sides.
Yeah, and they didn't want to fight each other anymore. It's like, yeah, they're not. Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
and that's the real tragedy of World War One is that everyone who was in charge could have at any moment said stop and looked at the horrific, catastrophic loss of life around them and said, "No, fuck you. We're gonna keep going."
I mean, that's with most wars in general.
yeah, well, hey Matt, what was that? What was that quote from that one guy in BattleTech?
You mean the one about how war isn't won through combat alone, but
Yep.
it's only the one part of it. The
Yep.
rest of it, winning a war involves all levels of society.
Yeah.
War
It's
is
kind of
much more
fun.
political than it is martial.
It is funny just how that is a quote from a fictional character and how it's just so absolutely true.
Well, I think Bismarck was saying that war is a political tool. It's just another political tool.
I think that's something that I wanted to say, but then it sort of slipped my mind.
Oh, that reminds me. I need to make McConaughey stew.
Make a what?
Oh, it's a stew that the British specifically made. It was common in the trenches.
Speaking of
Very high in protein and it gives you a lot of energy and it tastes surprisingly good.
That's interesting.
Made with fresh ingredients anyway.
Speaking of World War One, has anyone ever watched the anime Yojo Senki? Otherwise
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, otherwise known as the military records of a little girl, or as it's colloquially called in the West, Saga of Tanya the Evil, even though I absolutely hate that title.
I mean, it's a little more catchy.
It's more catchy, but it definitely gives a bad first impression of the main character when they're not necessarily evil. Self-serving, definitely, but I wouldn't specifically call them evil.
Could have just called her Tanya the Terrible.
That would have been much better. That would have been much better. But yeah, I love that anime, and I recently actually got around to watching the movie based on it. It's also sort of like a sequel to the anime series, and it's pretty damn good. If I were to describe it, it's like a World War setting with some bits of World War II tech and with magic.
Yeah, I think I got halfway through the first season. I don't think I managed to finish it though.
Oh, you should finish it. It gets even crazier towards the end. I just love the main character though. Tanya is a great character. Though I really hate how most people like in the real world react to the anime. Like we had that whole thing with the anime cons, like you can't dress as any of the characters from Saga of Tanya the Evil because Nazis, when the thing is placed in World War One. Would literally at a time where fascism didn't exist.
I mean, if we're gonna take the characters from Tanya off the table, then no one's allowed to dress as characters from Full Metal Alchemist then.
Or
oh, you know what really pisses me off?
Helsing.
Oh yeah.
Well,
what really pisses me off is the double standard, and you know, there's a number of reasons why the double standard exists, which I won't get into, but
I mean, hell, Tanya herself don't even like fascism or Nazism. So.
you were to go outside and like not even a Nazi uniform, a Wehrmacht uniform, you would get no end of shit. I mean, you'd wind up on the news and basically wound up ruining your entire reputation. But then, like, what's her name? That one of the girls from that school that got shut up. Her jacket is a Cuban revolutionary communist jacket. Communists are just bad.
Especially considering that with the specific one that she was wearing, that guy literally killed blacks and gays.
Yeah.
Oh, Che Guevara.
Yeah.
If you dressed as a communist or something, you wouldn't really have much of a problem.
And then PewDiePie get called out for wearing a quote-unquote Nazi uniform when really it's like a cheap British officer uniform.
No, they thought he was wearing a Nazi cross when of course, first of all, no, it's an Iron Cross which predates the Nazis.
And more than just Germany use it as a military medal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, people thought Wonder Woman was fighting Nazis in her movie.
When no.
Well, that's because they were written like Nazis for some weird ass reason.
Yeah.
Because it seems like that's the only way modern Hollywood writers can write Germans.
And can I just say, I find it idiotic, retarded, and disgusting to call just German soldiers in World War II Nazis.
Yeah, the Nazis were a very specific group of Germans.
It'd be like to illustrate how stupid it is. It would be to be like calling every American soldiers Democrats because there was a Democratic president.
Well, not just that. I mean, like even the U.S. even the Allied soldiers who were fighting Germany, they weren't saying we're gonna go fight, we're gonna go kill Nazis. No, we're gonna go kill Germans
or sauerkrauts.
Yeah,
same difference.
They were actually there were Jewish soldiers serving in World War I on the German army.
I mean, hell, even many German soldiers disagreed with the Nazi Party and worked against the SS.
Yeah, but their hands were kind of tied because they were weren't a lot of them conscripts though?
Oh yeah, there was a great deal who were conscripted from conquered territories.
Now, here's an interesting thing. You actually weren't allowed to join the Wehrmacht if you were a card-carrying member of any political party, including the Nazis.
Really?
If you're a Nazi, you needed to go join the SS.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you can hit that switch with something?
Use the pupper.
No, I think he's supposed to get the puppy up to the 3rd level, and I'm wondering if he can toss something to hit the switch.
I think I have to drag this heavy cart onto this thing, and then
you need something to keep the cart there, or you're under.
Doesn't it have a brake?
I can run up there. Okay, got it.
Could be a limited time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Pull it up as far back as you can, and then bolt it.
All right, so I need to do. Oh, okay, got it.
I think I forgot this was a puzzle game.
Yep.
It's a bit of a platformer.
Yeah, it's sort of like a combination platformer adventure game.
Oh no.
Is there also like a survivor resource management towards the end?
Well, there are arcade levels where you have to actually do like more Twitch-oriented gameplay, but as far as resources, I don't recall that.
Battle of No Hell.
It doesn't have that ridiculous moon logic that a lot of adventure games were infamous for, does it?
Moon logic? What do you mean?
Well, like
did
adventure
that dog
games.
just teleport?
Yeah, he totally teleported.
There's little tunnel holes. You can look.
Adventure games back in the day, they were known for having these ridiculous leaps in logic to solve their puzzles.
Well, this one is fairly grounded. I mean, aside from the fact that you can give the dog orders, and he understands exactly what you want. Like you say, you whistle at him, then you can tell him exactly where to go and what to pick up. Other than that, it's fairly grounded.
Also, whenever I see World War I anything, I also start thinking of the death corpse of Krieg.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The shovel lovers.
The dog also stops and tells you haven't solved the puzzle yet.
To be fair, I was reading Attacks by Evan Rommel, and
Okay, I can't do that.
Early on in the book, where this is First World War, when he was a lieutenant, and there was an incident early on where they were
bomb.
being bombarded, and they were like, everybody, get out your spades and start digging. And another unit, I don't know what size unit we're talking about here, but another unit went into a group of trees.
Oh, here we go.
They had huge amount of casualties, and although the people digging had their share of casualties, once they started making headway, they were drastically reduced. And that's the first example of him saying, "Sweat saves blood."
There was also
putting in that extra effort to build fortifications makes a huge difference on whether or not people die.
Text from the Black Pants Legion. He also brought up a really good comparison when he was doing his video on the Mad Cat about like the point he was trying to get across in that video was that if anyone does not know this, there was in the setting of BattleTech there was a big war between the Inner Sphere and the clans, and the Inner Sphere won. Even though the clans came in with superior soldiers, superior training, and superior tech and weapons at their back. And the Mad Cat's often held up as a mech that's often held up as an example of that. And what his point is that the reason is that even though the Mad Cat was arguably the best mech of its kind, the biggest problem was that there were so few of them made.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Tiger tank.
Exactly, that's the point he brought up, because like Germany, like they had soldiers that were they had an army that was the best of its kind at that point, and they had arguably superior weapons to the Allies, but they made less of them. They had like about 1,400 Tigers compared to about 40,000 Shermans and T-34s that, even though were objectively inferior, they just won.
Basically saying that while it's fine to operate under quality more than quantity, at some point quantity will offset the quality.
Right. I mean, the Tiger was a very over-engineered vehicle. Like, it had power steering. Like, you could steer that thing with one finger. It wasn't necessary to make.
It had a wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, it had power steering, and the T-34, you operated it with two levers, and it was basically a giant can, it was.
And I think it also had a less chance of just becoming inoperable before the battle even started compared to other tanks.
Right, like the T-34 was, like, it had a good engine, good tracks, good armor, and good gun, but the sights were crap. But the thing was, it was just it was well designed, but very cheaply produced, so they could literally produce them by the thousands. In the Battle of Kirks, there was they couldn't destroy the Tigers; they would just ram the tanks up on the Tigers and stop them. And they had so many of them that they could just do that over and over again.
Yeah, Germany would have been best served by just mass producing.
If I remember right, that's actually how, in the Civil War, the North beat the South, was basically tossing all their soldiers into meat grinder despite the South's superior tactics.
Well, it helped that the South was primarily waging a defensive battle, too. Like, that's always going to be less expensive, especially with their technology and the tactics they were using. When the South went on the offensive, they lost both times, although it was pricey for the North. But yeah, the South was primarily like letting the North come to them, so that was their advantage. And yes, they had the generals. They had all the best generals. They had Lee, they had Longstreet, they had Stonewall Jackson, and the North had a bunch of political appointees that were complete garbage. It wasn't.
There were some blunders by the South, but they often get overinflated in importance, I think, when it comes to talking about the war.
Yeah, I mean, they had early successes in the East, but they were getting their ass kicked in the West the entire time, and those were the important battles. Like, the East was politically important because it was most visible, because that's where the two capitals were.
Right.
And really, they were just hoping to hold out long enough for France and England to come in on the war on their side.
Since the South was having trade deals with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Due to agriculture.
Well, agriculture and textiles.
Oh yeah, textiles was a huge thing. I think that's like one of the. I think those two were like also the reasons why Lincoln wanted the South to be reintegrated back into the Union, because the North couldn't survive without the South's agriculture.
No, they could not. It's a very costly thing to decide that you can just blow off the people who grew your food.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Hintity hint for
Yeah.
what may or may
Or-
not be current political.
Interestingly enough, towards the end of the Civil War, this was where trench warfare was first implemented. Towards the end, they had elaborate networks of trenches.
Tunnels
Yeah.
and trenches. Yeah.
Yeah, and the early hand grenades too. They actually were extremely unreliable. Like, you had to land a plunger upright where the thing would not explode. So like soldiers would actually be able to catch the grenades in blankets safely if they were thrown, and then hurled right back at the people who threw them.
Yeah.
Grenades had been around for a long time, actually.
Yeah.
By then, now, the Civil War did also see the rise of the ironclads and some submarines.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
the Hunley was the first submarine used in combat. All right.
Yeah, I remember reading. There was.
Oh, I see what he's saying. Okay.
Even though, as far as tactics were concerned, it was overlooked by most of the European nations, which, in my personal opinion, is
2,
kind of a
3,
bad
2.
thing,
So that
considering-
one needs 3. Okay, that one needs 2.
Right. Then the next one needs 3, and then the next one needs 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. That's 4. Where's there a 3? Oh, that's a 3. I think this is a 3. If not, it's a
Yeah, I
4.
think-
Oh wait, no, the 3's up there. Okay, that's right. This one I'm holding is a 4.
Yeah. Oh, it's signified on the box.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So up the ladder is 3.
Yeah. So now he needs a 2. All right.
They had some observers, most of the European nations, to watch what was going on. And after the battle between the Merrimack and the Monitor, overnight, Britain canceled all pending wooden ship orders for their navy. They just saw what was going on. Neither of those ships were able to hurt each other. Even at point blank range, they're like, "Well, wooden ships are canceled."
Yeah. And talking about ships just reminded me of since my computer basically crapped itself with its hard drive. Me and a friend of mine who usually game a lot together are trying to do like less resource extensive games for my shitty backup laptop, and one of them includes a tabletop simulator. And because he's an unapologetically unhygienic weeb, he introduced me to this game called the Can Cold RPG, where it's like one of those animes where all ships of history, all the military ships of history is remade into like Japanese schoolgirls. It's actually not that bad of a game. And it actually has a lot of like interesting factoids about the ships the characters are based off, and abilities based off those things.
That's a neat way to get the information across.
Like the one that's based off the Yamada battleship.
Mm-hmm.
She has an ability called I'm Not a Hotel, which is based off of the fact that the Yamada class battleships are so heavy and resource extensive that sending them out to sea basically tanks the Japanese economy. So they just stay in the harbor, and they're so massive, and their onboard chefs were even so superior to most commercial chefs that the military even will rent out these ships to be hotels for people. And with this ability, every time she regains energy, all ally ships within her party gains like an extra energy as well. So it is rather fascinating. And I think out of all the battleships, she has like the most powerful starting guns and firepower.
Which would make sense. The Yamato did have the largest guns mounted on a ship.
Oh yeah, and oh my god, I always play with Yamada, and I just decimate enemy fleets like nobody's business.
Does Miss Yamato have big tits?
Her tits are somewhat alright, but her little gimmick is that her bra is actually the shells of artillery bullets. I think she's like the only one that does that, so it's kind of funny.
I always kind of nitpick the fact that they made Bismarck a girl just like all the others, even though Bismarck was always referred to as a male.
I think that was the thing with like all German and Soviet Russian ships, they were all referred to as male. But because Japan, they're all girls. And there's also like they have like an entire, like, if you wanted to, you could literally meme the fleet formation to have an entirely German fleet, because they got at least 1 or 2 ships of every classification that's German. I think that's like the only one that has that outside of like everything else, like Japanese, like a handful of Russians, and then like 1 or 2 U.S. ships, as well as a handful of British ships. But there's like at least an entire fleet's worth of German ships, and there's a carrier that's German. I forgot the name of it, but her thing is like, I'm no ordinary carrier, because she actually has gun platforms on her. I think that's like the point of like the real life version of the German ship, where the carrier, actually was more of a gunship than a aircraft carrier. I can't remember what that ship was called though. There's only 2 ships I remember. Names that I remember. That was 3. There's Bismarck, Prince Eugene, and the U-511 submarine. Oh, and we got shirtless Yoda. What's up?
Hello.
Hey Yoda. You shut up.
Yeah,
shut up late, but hey.
15 minutes left. Oh well. I just got off of work. I literally ran home so I could attempt to be on in the last 15 minutes.
Well, glad you made it. Glad you made it.
Thanks.
We've been surprisingly on topic with military in World War One. I think that's probably due just because of the game and what a fascinating subject the World Wars are, considering how much of a hot mess they are.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it wiped out all the wealth created by the Industrial Revolution. All right.
Pretty much.
Oh, wow, this dog knows how to flip levers. That's brilliant. Okay. Yeah, this is about as silly as it gets, I think.
Smart pupper.
Yeah, he's a smart pupper.
Well, I mean, dogs are smart enough to do much of.
Depends on the breed.
A lot of things. Like, I think it could be somewhat simple to have a dog recognize the fact, oh hey, this thing, I can push it to do stuff. Like, I think just recently a woman actually managed to get a dog to press buzzers in a series to actually formulate a conversation, which is kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. I think you actually look up a video of it on YouTube, because I remember there was like a news segment on it where I think it's even like on Twitter where there's like these buzzers with like words attached to it. You can see like what the words are to the buzzers, and you can actually have a conversation with the dog. It's kind of interesting.
My dog definitely tries to talk to me.
And currently, right now, one of our new puppies recently just learned how to play fetch. Roughly, she has trouble like putting the ball down so we can throw the ball again, but she seems to understand basic concept of physics, where if we kick the ball because our hands are too busy with other stuff, she'll actually like like figure out where the ball might potentially go and try to intercept it preemptively. Dogs are incredibly smart.
Yeah, they are.
Well, doesn't it kind of depend on the breed, though?
It kind of does. It's like with
Border
most.
collies
It's like with
most-
most species of many animals, because I think for the most part, a lot of birds aren't that intelligent, but corvids are is scarily intelligent.
Oh, they
And,
are.
and corvids, for those who don't know, are crows, ravens, and one
In other
other bird
words, all the
species.
birds Pulp Fire hates.
Well,
Yeah.
if you're
I thought-
intelligent enough to understand logic and reason, and even like a slight sense of morality, you're intelligent enough to be an asshole.
Yeah. Because corvids are, comparatively to other bird species, are scarily intelligent. They're like one of the most intelligent animals on the earth.
You see that one where the I think it was a raven, that was trying to get something out of a bottle and then realized it could bend a small piece of wire to get it into the right shape where it could be used as like a hook.
Yeah, it has complex problem solving and tool usage, which is actually not that common in most non-sapient animals.
No, it is not. It
I think
was terrifying and awe-inspiring at the same time.
I think the only animals more intelligent than a corvid are dolphins, couple of species of apes, and maybe octopuses, maybe?
Octopi.
I think now it's been confirmed that it's octopuses. I don't know, that the plural for it is always changing. I don't care anymore.
Well, even octopus is like not the proper pronunciation.
Yeah.
Or octopi.
It's whatever, but the point still stands. I think octopi or octopus. Just being a contrarian for contrarian's sake.
Of course he is.
But yeah, I think those are the handful of animals on the Earth that are more intelligent than a corvid, which says a lot considering how many species of animals there are in this world.
Oh man, I was going to the meme channel and I found one that Chad left behind. Build a wall. How about we finish construction on I-75 first?
Yeah,
I-75?
that's pretty true.
It's a Michigan thing, you Alabaster.
Yeah,
we
I-75
have
is the
an
main
interstate
north.
highway 75, going through Dallas. It's the one I use most often. It's pretty easy.
Not in Michigan, apparently. You were gonna say Yoda?
No, I was just saying that I-75 is the main north-south highway that runs through Michigan. It goes all the way, well, not just Michigan, but like that whole vertical line from Michigan to Florida is where I-75 runs. But in Michigan, it's really bad because Michigan is just bad at roads in general.
You have not seen roads in Pierce County. I mean, one of my memes was, Marty, I just came back from 2044, and they're still working on I-5 by the Dome. That's the Tacoma. For anyone who doesn't know, that's the Tacoma Dome. And yes, as someone who lives here, I can confirm that is very true. And by the way, I-5 runs all the way up to Seattle, all the way down to California.
Though, to get back to the animal thing, despite all of the stuff I just said, I personally believe that of all the animals we have to fear becoming sapient and becoming the next dominant species on the Earth, I think it would have to be ants. They are terrifying when it comes to how similar they are and becoming human level of I wouldn't say it's like a combination of things. They have architecture, something like city planning, societal structure,
Use social insects.
hygiene consideration, and some species can even do agriculture. It is
Wait, what are you
terrifying.
talking about?
Ants.
Ants becoming
yeah.
sapient.
I think the only saving grace we have to not have that be a thing is the fact that the queens direct everything that's happening, and I think it's found out that the queens aren't as intelligent as workers and soldiers because of how they have to do their protein management. The queen's brain structure needs to not be that big of a deal. Meanwhile, the workers do because they do more of the complex problem solving. But it's still the queens that do all of the directing.
Yeah, I would picture ants becoming hyper intelligent, something like the flood grave mines.
Or or the bugs from Starship Troopers, maybe.
Yeah,
But what's also
that'd
scary
probably be
is,
more accurate.
but what's
guess.
even more scary are ants that have the crazy prefix within their name, because those ants can even do confederations, where they can form super colonies by introducing other queens and other colonies into their own colony to form a super colony. So there are some species of ants that can even do federations, which is also
Damn.
kind of scary.
Another funny Michigan meme. When you drink clean water in Flint, we don't do that here.
I need to see if there's like Louisiana memes.
There has to be. Here's one from Washington. I'm looking forward to summer. The rain gets warmer.
She was hard on the trail of her missing father.
Washington State flowers in full bloom, and it's a bunch of traffic cones.
Well, I mean, I did do
That's
that one.
accurate in Michigan as well.
I did do that one unofficial meme where Brett, you asked if Louisiana even had foxes, and I said, yeah, I just posted one. It was an alligator.
Springtime in Washington. April showers bring May showers.
Oh, here's a good one. Meanwhile, in Louisiana, and there's like a street sign that says hikers and bikers move to the side of the road when a vehicle approaches, and on the side of the road is just like a colony of alligators.
Clay had a couple good New Jersey ones in here. Meanwhile, New Jersey, it's a bunch of douchebags that look like they're from Jersey Shore.
Here's another good one. The Louisiana Purchase. There's a guy with the American flag handing money to on his head, handing money to a guy that has the French flag on his head that says, "I'm gonna pay you $100 to fuck off."
Same thing with Russia and Alaska. We got that so cheap.
And it was called Seward's Folly because no one thought there was anything of value until someone struck gold out there.
Oh, here's another good one. If we could not have all 4 seasons of weather in 1 week, that'd be great.
That's a Michigan meme right there.
Here's another Jersey one Clay dropped. New Jersey Transit, where the departures are made up and the arrival times don't matter.
Oh, here's another good one. News. There's a hurricane coming. Louisiana. Some guy flying on by on a waterbed. Just relaxing.
Alabaster, we need some Texas memes.
Oh, I made one.
Here's a really good one. Louisiana weather summed up, and it's like a courtyard of like a square building where you got like the inner courtyard with it surrounded by the 4 walls.
You mean a quad?
Yeah, basically, and like half of it is like all green and spring-like, while the other half is completely covered in snow. And what differentiates why one half is covered in snow? The half that's covered in snow is the only side that is covered by shade. Oh god, I didn't know Louisiana memes were like this, and I love it. I don't know why I didn't look up Louisiana memes until now.
Of course, we all know whose state has the best memes.
Florida, of course.
Florida.
Yeah. Florida man. Absolutely. Well, it's 11, so I'm going to call it tonight, guys. Fun discussions.
Well, tropical storm Barry is coming. Louisiana
Here
people
he
be
is.
like, gotta cut my grass.
I guess one thing I want to clear the air on before we go off air. Next Tuesday, I unfortunately have to work, and I won't be getting off till 9 p.m.
All right.
I'm
Well,
surprised there isn't a meme about how bad drivers in New Orleans are.
But I also wasn't exactly sure if we were even gonna do a show next Tuesday because next Tuesday's Christmas Eve, and I figured everyone would want to be home with their families.
Yeah,
So-
we'll go ahead and call next week's stream, and we'll meet up again on the next one. Probably we'll see how that goes. And wish-
well, I think it. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, like we could probably. I got Monday off, I know, but I know that much. But
we do have the Twitch channel, and I ran like an hour-long Stardew Valley session on Sunday to test it out, make sure it was healthy, and looks like it's going to be all right. So anytime Brett, you or Matt want to hop on there and run a game, just let everyone know that you're doing it, and hang out there over on the Twitch stream.
we'll probably do that. We'll see. We'll see. But if we don't have a Radio Mythoverse stream next week, just take this as like us saying have a Merry Christmas.
Have a Merry Christmas. Thank you guys for being part of our community. Thank you guys for supporting our endeavors here to create some great stories that I think are really going to stand the test of time, and I can't wait to read all of your stories too, man. So, excellent.
I think the only comic that I've received that I haven't read yet is Adobe Kroger, and I can't wait to get the time to get into that.
Oh, yeah. Well, excellent. I can't wait to hear what you think of it, man. And with that said, guys, thank you very much for everyone who chatted, everyone who listened, and everyone who watched. And we will see you after the holidays.